In the quiet hills of Evergreen Ridge, a small community nestled in the heart of Colorado, life moved at a gentle pace. For years, retirees like me had found solace in these mountains, building cabins that stood as testaments to simpler times. My name is Harold Jenkins, and at 72 years old, I'd spent the last 2 decades tending to my little piece of Havana, cozy cabin with a wraparound porch, wildflowers blooming in the yard, and a view of the aspens that turned gold each fall. It was a place where friends from all walks of life could gather, share stories over coffee, and escape the hustle of the world below. One crisp autumn morning, as the leaves whispered secrets to the wind, I welcomed my old buddies from the city. There was Frank, a widower with a laugh that could fill a room, and Eleanor, his sister, who still carried the spark of her nursing days. We'd met during our working years, back when the world felt full of possibilities. And now, in our golden years, we cherished these reunions. They arrived in Frank's old station wagon, packed with stories and a cooler of homemade apple pie. We sat on the porch, watching the sun dip behind the peaks, reminiscing about the good old days, the days of drive-in movies, family road trips, and neighbors who actually knew your name. But as the evening shadows lengthened, a shadow of a different kind crept in. That's when she appeared, Karen Wilkins, the self-appointed enforcer of the Evergreen Ridge Homeowners Association. She'd moved in a few years back, a woman in her late 60s with a no-nonsense bob and a clipboard that seemed permanently attached to her hand. Karen was the kind who dotted every I and crossed every T, turning what should have been a peaceful retreat into a battleground of rules and regulations. No outdoor grills after 6 p.m., no more than 2 cars in the driveway, and heaven forbid you hang your laundry out to dry. I heard the crunch of gravel before I saw her, her sensible shoes marching up the path like a general on patrol. "Harold Jenkins," she called out, her voice sharp as a winter wind. "What's all this commotion? You know the rules? No gatherings larger than 4 people without prior approval from the HOA board?" Frank and Eleanor exchanged uneasy glances, and I felt a familiar knot in my stomach. We'd dealt with Karen before over my bird feeder being unsightly or at the height of my fence, but this felt different. She was eyeing my guests like they were intruders, not friends who'd shared life's ups and downs with me. The confrontation escalated quickly. Karen thrust her clipboard forward, pointing to a list of bylaws that seemed to grow longer with each passing month. "This is a quiet community for seniors, Mr. Jenkins. We don't need outsiders turning it into a party zone. I'll have to report this to the board, and you might face fines or worse, eviction proceedings." Frank stood up, his face reddening, but I waved him down. I tried to explain that these were just old friends, visiting, that we'd been careful not to disturb anyone, but Karen wouldn't hear it. She snapped a photo of my porch with her phone, muttering about evidence, and stormed off with a promise to return with reinforcements. That night, as we sat inside with the curtains drawn, the mood had soured. Eleanor fretted over her tea, worrying about what might happen next. Frank paced the room, his usual cheer replaced by frustration. And me? I felt a mix of anger and resignation. After all, I'd fought my share of battles in life serving in the Army during Vietnam, raising a family through economic hard times, and losing my wife to illness a decade ago. But this was my home, a place I'd earned through years of hard work, and I wasn't about to let some busybody take it away. The next morning, I decided it was time to fight back. I dug through my old files, pulling out documents from when I'd bought the property decades ago. There it was, a clause in the original deeds that protected residents' rights to host guests, as long as it didn't involve commercial activity. Armed with this, I called a lawyer friend from my Rotary Club days, who advised me on how to proceed. Meanwhile, Frank and Eleanor rallied around me, helping me prepare. We cleaned up the yard, made sure everything was in order, and even baked an extra pie as a peace offering, though I knew Karen wouldn't be swayed by sweets. Word spread quickly in our small community. A few neighbors, tired of Karen's overreach, quietly offered their support. Old Mr. Thompson from down the road lent me his vintage truck for added decorum, and Mrs. Alvarez brought over flowers to brighten the porch. But Karen wasn't backing down. She returned that afternoon with 2 other HOA members, demanding I sign a waiver limiting my guests. That's when things really heated up. Voices rose, accusations flew, and for a moment, it felt like the whole community was on the brink of division. Just as tensions peaked, a black SUV pulled into my driveway. Out stepped a tall man in a suit, his silver hair and kind eyes marking him as a fellow elder. "Good afternoon," he said, extending a hand. "I'm Judge Robert Hayes, retired from the Denver Circuit Court. I live just over the ridge, and I've been following this situation." Karen's face paled as she recognized him, a man whose rulings had shaped local law for years. He listened to both sides, his presence alone commanding respect, and then he smiled at me. "Harold, I've reviewed the bylaws you mentioned. It seems clear that your rights are protected here. With Judge Hayes as an unexpected ally, The tide turned. He explained the legal nuances in simple terms, reminding everyone of the community's founding principles. A place for seniors to live freely and enjoy their twilight years. Karen, flustered and outmaneuvered, tried to argue, but the judge's calm authority silenced her. "Let's not turn neighbors into enemies," he said. "Perhaps it's time for the HOA to revisit these rules with a bit more compassion." Emboldened by this comeback, I stood a little taller. We invited the judge to join us for coffee, and as the afternoon wore on, stories flowed like the mountain streams. Frank shared tales from his factory days. Eleanor recounted her adventures in healthcare. And even Karen softened a bit, admitting she was just trying to preserve the peace. It was a small victory, but it felt monumental, a reminder that, in a world of rules, heart still mattered. In the end, the HOA backed down, and my friends stayed for the full week, filling the cabin with laughter once more. As they packed up to leave, the sun setting on another perfect day, I realized how much these moments meant. Life in Evergreen Ridge returned to its gentle rhythm, with a few lessons learned along the way. Judge Hayes became a regular visitor, and Karen even waved hello now and then. It was a payoff beyond measure, not just a win for me, but for the spirit of community that binds us all. If you enjoyed this story, I'd love it if you'd like and subscribe for more tales like this one. And while you're at it, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Perhaps another cozy corner of the USA, or maybe even beyond. Your stories might just inspire the next one.